everybody. Welcome back to the show. I'm S.A. Baz Collins here with my co-host.
Van Sebastian.
And today we are doing something a little bit off the beaten path. And by that, I mean we are being queer in Alaska. We are doing Alaska is a Drag. And this is a story of a fish out of water, literally. Leo had to learn to survive, and his boss, an amateur boxer, notices it. When a new boy offers to train with him, Leo and his twin sister are forced to face the real reason they are trapped in that place. So that's the basic rundown. I have to say this was a little surprise, and it was a pleasant surprise in a big way. It definitely has, in some respects, and I know this is going to be a slight stretch, but bear with me, it has that Northern Exposure kind of feel to it, in that it is an eclectic bunch of people out in the wilds of Alaska, and the fact that they're dealing with gays has a little bit of an issue, but in some parts of it, it doesn't, which is exactly what happened in Northern Exposure. You had the happy gay couple who were the only well-adjusted people in the entire fucking town. And then, and everybody else was having dysfunctional problems all over the place, and yet the gays ran the only nice B&B in town and were well-adjusted and really liked being with each other, and, So this is kind of almost in that vein, in that we're back in Alaska, and the brother and sister twin duo, it's kind of a nebulous thing of how they got there in the first place. I don't think they really answer that. Do you remember them saying anything?
Just that their dad dragged them up there.
Yeah, but we don't know the real reason. And there's something about him too that you don't get the full story of why he did it. So I mean,
he's trying to start a church.
Yeah, but I mean, did that happen? Was that the impetus, or did that evolve because he was there and he wanted something to do and he was feeling guilt over his own personal sexuality issues?
Wait, didn't they say near the end that it was one of those come earn $50,000 for a summer's worth of work, and then they got stuck?
Oh yeah, maybe that was it. And can we say just Nia Peoples is in this, and I saw her name go by, and I'm like, oh my God, they really reached into the 90s closet for her.
Yep.
I was like, wow, girl, okay. Anyways, I like the cast. It's very eclectic. It spans the spectrum, and even as Vance was, we were commenting before the show recorded, we have our diva royalty, Dame Margaret Cho is even listening. And you know what? If I'm going to have to live in an Alaska town, I want to live in an Alaska town where she's in it. Because that's the only way I'm going to survive in Alaska, is if Margaret Cho is in the same town with me. Because she don't take no prisoners. And she suffers no fools. But, I really loved it. And I also love the fact that Matt Dallas did this. He's one of my favorite YouTubers. I follow him in Blue religiously on YouTube. And it was nice seeing him back in the acting saddle again. I watched Kyle XY, and it was a decent show. It wasn't groundbreaking, but I really liked him as a performer, and it was nice to see him back in that saddle doing something again. So I'm really happy about that. I think he added quite a bit to it. He added this kind of metrosexual kind of guy who was curious, but he never really it's really interesting where it ends up too. At the end, you don't know why Declan is going with them when they decide to finally leave, when they finally achieve and they're just making the push to a better life or a different life. But it's definitely hinted that Declan is rather entranced by it's Isaiah Washington plays him. Leo and Tristan.
Isaiah? You mean Martin?
Oh, sorry, Martin. Martin Washington.
No, not Isaiah.
Yeah, no, it's not. Boy, was that a big fuck up. I completely changed the movie with that casting.
You really did.
Yeah. Anyways, Margaret L. Washington. And Vance and I don't know
Martin.
if Martin L. Washington Jr., right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. We don't know if the twins are actual twins or not. They seem it, but they're, they have the same last name, and they're billed as twins in the movie. So, I mean, if not, then it's just a lovely serendipity about the casting of the movie. I just think that that's kind of cool. I also like that they gave Tristan something else other than her just being the sidekick to the brother, the twins kind of thing. She had her own journey, and as Leo was starting to come into his own and actually starting to make connections that were deeper with Declan, and and he was finding himself, finding his own voice, this is very much about that. I think it was interesting that it was juxtaposed to his constant support of his sister and how he was dropping the ball on some of that. And, her future is not quite so clear, but you have the feeling of like, okay, they're going to California. At least there will be high quality doctors. Or not saying that they won't have somebody in Alaska, but the chances are going to be far better stateside in the contiguous 48.
Well, without spoiling it, the medical facility that we saw looked pretty slapped together.
Yeah.
Like she wasn't in
almost clinic.
Yeah, she wasn't in an actual clinic chair. She was in almost a lawn chair.
Yeah.
So you kind of think that where she's headed, she might get some better care.
Yes. So that's kind of the hope that you get out of the end of it. But at the same time, having had my own cancer journey, and it's been kind of a, I empathize with her a great deal in this, and when she felt like he wasn't there for her, that really tugged on my heartstrings, because I know what that's like. I mean, my husband was there with me all the time, but I mean, I know what that would have been like had I not had that support.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very lonely feeling. And so it's something that I really identified with, was her journey. And I thought they handled that very well. And I thought that they really played the twin angle very well. And Martin and Maya really, if they're not related, they really played that twin dynamic as if they had been together at all time.
Yep.
Chemistry was there. It was spot on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you think?
I loved it. There are several things I like about it. One, it was actually filmed in Alaska, and so all on location shots, which was great. No studio shots. You actually saw real northern lights, which was fantastic. But what I really loved was the fact that it felt like almost everybody in town, I would say 90%, were all transplants from somewhere else. And even if they only had one or two lines, it was almost always a reveal of who else they were. And very few of them are who you think they're going to be.
Right.
Which is, I found really endearing, because it made me feel like we were talking with and about and watching a show with real people, not actors who learned a script.
Well, I mean, that's part of what I call the northern exposure magic. It's kind of like Alaska has its magicalness about it, in that everything that really highlights the state kind of gives it that ethereal kind of dreamland at the edge of the world kind of feel, and everybody's just trying to survive kind of thing. And excuse me. And I have to say, because I have a cousin who actually does that. He goes up to Alaska and does the whole fishing thing during the season and stuff. And so I know it's not an easy life. And it's it just, it was, I liked it because it kept up that Alaska's magical kind of feel, even though Northern Exposure was filmed in Washington State. But it was a nice It gave me all the Northern Exposure feels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, and Jason Scott Lee is in it playing Diego, and it took me a while to figure out who he was, and then I went, oh yeah, Jungle Book, the live action version.
Yep.
Back in '94. And some of you may remember him from playing Bruce Lee, although no relation, Bruce Lee in the Bruce Lee stories. So that's also where he's from. So, yeah, I mean, I guess if you have nothing else to contribute, let's go ahead and get to the ratings.
Let's do it.
All right, you want to go first?
Sure. Overall production, I gave it a 4. Like I said, it was not done in a studio, but I think that's part of its charm. However, it had a couple of rough edges, which, again, kind of felt like Alaska. Script screenplay, I gave it a 3.5, and only because some of the lines were hard to follow, and I'm pretty sure that's how it was written, not how it was delivered. But also, you sometimes jump into Leo's head, the main character. You sometimes jump into his head and the fact that in his head, he's always on stage. And the first couple times, and maybe this is more of a director thing, but the first couple times I was like, wait, what's going on? Did we just hop a scene? And so it wasn't quite clear at first that's what was happening. Sound lighting score, give it a 4.5. Again, I liked the feel, the grittiness to it. The music was on point, and the couple songs that actually were sung for the film were done really well. Art direction, costuming, I gave it a solid 5. The fisher folk were dressed as fisher folk. The kids trying to be in drag, bless their hearts, were little baby boys.
That
they were little baby boys in drag.
Well, that and the fact that they would go to this, like, you know, found on the cruise ship kind of thing, and they would just go mopping for, you know, whatever outfit they thought was kind of cool, you know. That I love too. I mean, the fact that one of the fisher guys was there, looking as well, you know.
Like I said, you never know who these people are going to end up being. Casting, give it a 4. I think everybody was on point. My socks weren't specifically blown off, but everybody was great. Directing, gave it a 4. And here's where that fudge room is. Maybe the transitions between reality and Leo's imagination could have been a bit better. So, queer themes presented, 4.5. Leo had to face a lot of small town, and in this case, rural Alaska weirdness just by being out and gay. And trying to be a drag queen in this community. And, you know, learning boxing too. I mean, it was a weird blend, but I loved it. So personal overall rating, 4.5.
Well, I end up with the same overall rating, personal overall rating, 4.5. But everything is almost 4s across the board, with the exception of the screenplay and the queer themes presented. And the reason why I'm giving those a 5 is because in the script and screenplay department, I like the fact that it had that magical realism kind of thing that it wove in, that the whole drag community kind of thing made its way to Alaska via the twins. So they were doing the whole, you know, dance routines and stuff. And when they were alone, that was kind of their private thing that they would do, the twins would do. So it was like a little bit of pose came into, you know, the ballroom culture came into Alaska. And I love that. I really love that. And I also like that the fact that it was an open-ended ending. You know, with them just at that last moment with the 3 of them saying goodbye to Alaska, and you know, and then you pan up and you get to the Northern Lights and it just goes up into the sky. I thought that was really beautifully done. I do agree with you on the whole directing thing. And it's really weird because there were some elements, and I agree with you on the consistency issue, because when he did the Nia Peoples segments, those were very dreamlike and very ethereal and mystical and stuff like that. So he knew to do that.
Right.
But as you say, with the stuff for Leo and Tristan, it didn't always go there. And so it was kind of a weird mix. It should have been much more established between the two. And then in Queer Themes Presented, I'm giving it a 5 because I just think that it's probably one of the most unique films about queerness in that you have, a drag queen who's a boxer, I mean, how many of those are out there, So, so I kind of loved that aspect. And like I said, and the fact that it brought me the Northern Exposure vibes, I was down with that. I was really down with that. I thought that was a lovely, lovely touch. And I like the fact that Jason Scott Lee's character, Diego, had enough real world experiences that when he was figuring out what was going on with Leo and Declan, and he was fine with that. He was just like, hey, I'm here to do boxing, but I'm also here to support you, what I can do, kind of thing. So I like that they played him in that worldly way, holding his crew together at the fish cannery, so anyways, and I'll just give a small shout out to Chris O'Shea, who plays Kyle, who is kind of the thorn in everyone's side. I thought it was interesting in the end they did have a resolution between him and Leo that, Kyle made his choices and that's where that had to go. But that wasn't stopping Leo. He still had a trajectory to get out. And Kyle was left to his own, you made the bed, lie in it kind of thing, so, and I think Chris O'Shea played that part very well. He played it to a T. So there's that. All right. So that is it for this week. I will say that I would love to have more films like this.
Yeah.
That have, and it does have that magical realism in a slightly odd way. But then, like I said, Alaska tends, that kind of tends to be the promotion of Alaska in films and things that I've seen. They've always tried to hype that kind of edge of the world kind of feeling to it. So, I kind of get it. But I would love to see more queer films along this line with some magical realism, some etherealness to it that, because it would add more flavor to our queer theme pot of types of movies that are out there. They don't all have to be coming out films. They don't all have to be, so I would like to see some of that happen as well. So it was a delightful surprise for when you suggested this. So I'm really thrilled you did.
Yay.
Next week, we are going back to queer coding, and we are reviewing, or more of a retrospective look at The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And I am a huge fan of the Palladinos, who write and direct this. I followed them in Gilmore Girls, so I know their writing very well. I'm definitely down with the foundation that this show is built upon. And we're going to talk about the queer coding that is in Mrs. Maisel, which, interestingly enough, was one of the things they were knocked hard for on Gilmore Girls, that they didn't have that queer element. They never went there until the year in the life special that they did on Netflix, and then they finally added that in, but it almost seemed like it was shoehorned late, even though Michelle in Gilmore Girls was obviously queer, he was obviously gay, but never played it openly that way. So there were some things that they tried to correct in doing Mrs. Maisel, and I loved the fact that the way they did it and the way they've done it. So we'll talk more about it next week, but we're doing that because on February 18th, I believe, is when the new season 4, begins. And it's supposed to have some epic changes in Midge Maisel's life. And we actually did meet a real live Mrs. Maisel. And we talked to her. And I'll put the link up here of her episode.
For
Definitely should go check it out. She was one wild cat. Or is a wildcat. I shouldn't say was.
Is.
She still is a wildcat. But a delight. And definitely someone you should listen to because she is the real deal. So from all of us here at Rope Podcast, I'm S.A. Baz Collins.
I'm Ben Sebastian.
And we'll see you at the movies. Make sure to like, subscribe, tell your friends. And to also check out our swag shop. if you get a chance, because we got some cool things going up there. I'm adding more Pride Pup stuff in the next couple of days, so we will definitely have a lot of stuff. You can find it on ropepodcast.com, and along the top you'll see the little shop link. Click that and it'll take you right to where our store is, and it will also give you the latest guest links for their books and stuff that they're promoting. So it's a great place to go find your next queer purchase. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see you at the movies, guys. Take care. Be kind to each other.
And stay safe. We'll talk to you soon.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in Melody, dear.